We are back on Patriots 4th and 2, the official podcast, PatsFans.com. I'm Russ Goldman. Along with me is Steve Balistrieri. Derek Haven should be joining us very shortly. In this episode, we're going to be looking at the Patriots' needs, and the way we're going to do it on this episode is we're going to count them down from 5 to 1, our top 5 needs for the Patriots. It's going to involve the players, but I think they'll also involve the coaching staff as well. Top 5. So that should make it for an interesting show. We'll go from 5 to 1, with 1 being the Patriots' number 1 need. I have a feeling we might be in agreement of what the number 1 need is, but we're not there yet. In the meantime, as I always say on this show, please do subscribe on Apple Podcasts and on YouTube to the PatsFans.com YouTube channel. It does help other Patriots fans find us. Also, please feel free on Apple Podcasts to leave us a review and a rating. Same thing. It does just help the process of other Patriots fans finding Patriots 4th and 2, because anyone that has gone on Apple Podcasts knows there must be 100 different Patriots podcasts. It's difficult to get known. So we've been doing it for 11 years, and we still have Patriots fans trying to find us. So please do leave a review, and please do subscribe. All right. Steve, while we wait for Derek, he's being fashionably late. Shocker there. So I have an interesting topic to get us going while we wait for Derek. And you and I were talking about this off air. So what's been good for me, as if anyone doesn't know, I've been really doing my other podcast a great deal. And one of the benefits of that is that it's been helping me avoid all the talk here in New England about the Patriots, because 95% of it is worthless to me. But against my better judgment this morning, I decided to listen to the Felger and Maz show from last night, the first hour with Greg Bedard. And what's interesting on this, I know, Steve, that Steve and I have talked about this for years. I don't know if I talked to Derek about it, but they have been basically dancing around the subject on how they feel about the Patriots organization with their spending. They refuse to use the word that I'm about to say until yesterday. Michael Felger used the word cheap to describe the New England Patriots. So, Steve, I thought that would give us a great opportunity to talk about this, because the Patriots act as business is being done. They use the salary cap as their business model. And I don't see them as being cheap. I'm seeing them as, with the salary cap, there's an ebb and flow to it year to year. There's going to be years where they're going to spend more, and there's going to be years where they spend less, but they usually spend around the same amount. That's why the salary cap is there. I don't see them as cheap at all, Steve. But I want to get your thoughts on this, because the perception out there, partially because of this show on 98.5, the Sports Hub, and others, that the Patriots are cheap. Let's talk about it. I don't think they're cheap, my friend. I know you don't either.
No. And hello, Chris Godwin's always right on top of things when we come on. So thank you, Chris, for always being there. Goodwin, excuse me. I was watching Vikings Valhalla, so I was strapped on with the Godwin. But anyway, are they cheap? No. They're careful. And that's why the Patriots are not in the position that the Rams are in right now.
Right.
Because, everyone was talking about how great the Rams are. And now look at where the Rams are 1 year after they won their Super Bowl. Their coach was even contemplating stepping down because he didn't want to be part of a rebuild after they spent a fortune. And now they can't compete, as we saw this past season.
Right.
There are other teams in the same boat. I mean, look at what happened with Denver. Yeah, they went all in during the Peyton Manning years, and they spent a ton of money, and now, they're in the boat that they're in, because they strapped themselves to Russell Wilson.
That's right,
and
Steve.
He was not good this year. And yes, good morning, Claire. I loved your self-promotion, by the way. So
I was just about to share that, Steve, because our friend Claire, you shouldn't do the radio shows, Russ. A Claire Perspective is a nice Patriots podcast. Yes, it is, Claire. It really is. It's a wonderful Patriots podcast. I would highly recommend it. There are certain guests that you have on that I'm not a big fan of. You know who they are. That's between us. But it's a wonderful podcast, so I would highly recommend it.
and Claire's a wonderful host. So
Incredible host. She
but
really
back
is.
to the back to
The matter at hand.
Yes, the Patriots, they've always been careful with their money, much to the chagrin of many of these radio shows, because they want, what do we always say? What do they want? They want the name.
Right. They want the name, Steve. It's all about the name. It's all about that pop, because that's how that they can generate calls. They can generate listeners, is that they want the name. Plus, they probably struggle to come up with new ways to talk about the Patriots. So it's easy. It's an easy way to do it.
Did I lose you?
Nope. Well, I think I might have lost Steve for a second, because I have a very interesting pose for Steve. Steve, you back there with me?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
So what did you want to ask me?
Oh, no, I was just saying, so when we look at it, when we talk about this claim of cheapness, I'm glad that you brought this up, because the best way to look at it, like I said, it's about the salary cap. And I think the best teams manage it on a long-term basis, and they try, and I know the Crafts are trying to do this. They want to try to win every year, but they don't want to have these incredible down years, because when you go for it, like the Rams did, now they are in a disarray. You just mentioned, Steve, the Denver Broncos. That's going to set them back for years. And this is something that very quickly the radio shows here in Boston, they'll discount it because they won or they have that name recognition. But I'll just throw this out to you, that the biggest fan of the Russell Wilson move to the Denver Broncos was Tony Maserati. And he looks like an idiot today, because I think that has really hurt that team for years to come. The Rams
Imagine that
right.
He looks like an idiot.
He does. And but the Rams themselves, I heard glowing talk of how they built their team, all of this, that they went for it. More teams should do it. No, they shouldn't. More teams should not do it. More teams should build.
Well, if you
on
want
a
that one
basis.
flash where you get to the big game, and then you're going to be saddled with, as you said, chaos. Yeah, but because it what does it do? It helps the radio shows with their ratings, because they can talk one year about how great they were, and then the very next year they'll flip flop like they always do, and turn around and say they weren't smart with their money and now they're paying the price. Tell me I'm wrong. I mean, that's what they do.
That's exactly what they do, Steve.
And we try on shows like ours and Claire's and then some other ones. We try to keep an even keel on things. We're not into the the bombastic approach to everything where everything's a hot take. We don't do that. The Patriots don't with the salary cap. They'll go after some big name guys, and here's Derek.
Right. And before we do that, I just want to share this from Chris, because Chris, I want to put this into comparison. If you've ever listened to him, think of Simon Jordan, Chris. He'll know who I'm talking about. That's kind of Felger Mass. That will give you an idea of what Felger and Maz are about.
Why are we bitching about Felger and Maz right now?
Because they called the Patriots cheap.
They called the Patriots cheap on their show yesterday. It was the first time. It's the first time they've done this, that Michael Felger's actually done it. And I know why he hasn't. They've kind of danced around the topic, because several years ago, Derek, Michael Felger got himself into a little trouble by calling the Bruins owner a thief. So he's kept away from that. But yesterday, for some reason, he felt he needed to call the Patriots cheap, and he did. And so that's why I thought I would bring it up on the show. Before we move on and go through our top 5, Derek, what are your thoughts? Steve and I don't think that they're cheap. We actually use the Rams as the organization of going for it, and then it can really, cause some serious issues moving forward. Do you see the Patriots as cheap?
No, I don't see them as cheap at all.
Okay, very good. All right, good stuff. All right, so as I said at the beginning of the show, Derek's now with us. What we're going to do on this show is we're going to talk about the Patriots' needs. We're going to do it in a little bit different way. Instead of just breaking down the roster, talking about the coaches, we're going to go through our top 5 needs. I'm going to go to Steve and Derek, and we're going to go from 5 to 1. Okay? So, Steve, I'm going to go to you first as we talk about Patriots' needs. And I have a feeling we're all going to be in agreement of what the number 1 need is. It can include coaches, by the way. Just keep that in mind. So, number 5, Steve, what is your number 5 need for the Patriots?
I hope Steve and I have some of these in common, but we'll see. I'm really interested to find out.
Number 5.
Number 5, Steve.
Boundary cornerback.
Okay.
Oh, and, I've been looking through some of the free agents, and look, real quick on this. I know Derek will have his own take on this, but, I think they have a couple of really good young corners. I think they, obviously you want some depth. I would love to see them bring in an established vet. I think 2 of the top names, especially the guy from the Eagles, Bradbury.
Okay.
He's probably going to be priced out of their range, but I'll tell you what, the number 3 corner, probably in free agents, is a pretty damn good one. Cameron Sutton from the Steelers.
Okay.
He was a backup, like a guy they moved inside, outside, wherever he was needed for the first couple of years of his career. The last year, in 2021, they made him a starter. He had some really good games. He had some not so good ones. But this year, he was outstanding. Quarterbacks that passed against him only had a 67 quarterback rating and a 49% completion, So he had 3 interceptions and 15 pass defenses. He's a guy that you could bring in, and then you could also draft another guy in the middle rounds. And I think your cornerback room, would be set. I'm not so sure they're going to bring back Jonathan Jones at this point, because I think he's going to command a ton of money.
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
And with Marcus Jones on the roster, I think they can move him into the slot if Jonathan bolts for a ton of money. Okay.
So this is an interesting one before I go to Derek. So do you think that Jack Jones can be your number 1 eventually, Steve? It sounds like you want someone regardless. Do you want that number 1 cornerback, or are you looking for someone that could be a 1 or a 2?
Well, I think with Sutton, he might be your number 1 if they were to target this guy. He might be your number 1 this year, and I think Jack Jones in year 3 would, at least they hope he would be that guy.
Okay, good stuff. Derek, over to you. Thoughts on Steve's number 5? Is it different than yours? Afterwards, feel free to then go into your number 5.
It is different than my 5, but I do have it in my top 5. I have it higher on the list.
Okay, so keep your thoughts on that when we get there. So
do you want me to go with my number 5 or okay?
Yes,
my number 5 is free safety. I do think that Devin McCourty seems like he's going to be done. We don't know that for sure, but assuming he's going to be done, just given the emotion and kind of the tenor of like how things ended, last week, it just seemed like Devin was going to be gone. And I think they're in a really good spot at the safety position. I really do. I think Adrian Phillips and Kyle Duggar had a strong end of the year. And I don't think enough people are talking about how well Jabril Peppers played.
He played great. I thought he played fantastic.
I thought he really built on the last half of the season. The last few games, he was all over the place. And I would love to see him be back. I don't know what kind of money he's I don't know what kind of money he's going to command, but his versatility and where you can move him, he's the perfect Bill Belichick type player where you can really move him all over the board, and I think he was terrific. But free safety, I think, is where you get into it a little more. You can go back and forth on it a little bit. Like I know Kyle Duggar has the athleticism to play it, but he's also better in the box and closer to the line of scrimmage. So, yeah, could he be a playmaker in the back end of the field? He might be able to do that. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I think that they need to look at some kind of safety, free safety, excuse me, if Devin is for sure done. That would be my fifth. My fifth.
Okay. Derek, back to you, because I want to work on this just a little bit, because to my detriment, I did listen to Felger Maz in the first hour with Greg Bedard, and they did their 3 up and 3 down.
Yep.
And I don't remember who mentioned this, but they talked about Kyle Duggar as being a sneaky bad for the Patriots this season, that he was overrated. This is from Greg Bedard, I'm paraphrasing, that he had just as many bad plays as he did good plays.
Done.
Thoughts on that, Derek?
I think that Kyle Duggar, his biggest weakness is when he is one-on-one on coverage. But I think that if he is playing...
He's focusing on the tight end coverage.
I'm sorry, what?
Bedard was focusing on how bad he was against tight ends.
Yeah, well, I struggle with dairy, so it's like, yeah, like I mean, like everyone has something. I mean, yeah, okay. He's not perfect. I mean,
okay,
I'm not going to sit here and say that Kyle Duggar is, without issue. I think that when he is in one-on-one coverage, tight ends, receiver, I don't care what the position is. Yeah, he's not great. That is his biggest weakness, but he is an elite playmaker. He is someone who is absolutely incredible from a physicality standpoint, strong against the run, in excellent anticipation. I mean, yeah, we can nitpick. Is he one of the best safeties in the league? I don't know, but he's a damn good player for this team. I can tell you that right now. So,
okay. Okay, Steve, I want to get your thoughts on this. I didn't share this with you before, but this is one of the things that stood out to me in the hour I'll never get back from my life. So, thoughts on Kyle Duggar, because when I heard this, I was thinking, what the hell is his problem? I'm talking about Bedard. So your thoughts.
I thought, sure, he had some bad plays this year, but he also had a lot, in my opinion, he had a lot more very, very good ones, some outstanding ones. And I think, like Derek, I think that they may actually move him to free safety because he is so athletic and make him be kind of like the center fielder back there. And because of that, I was hoping, Adrian Phillips down there, and, I would really love to see them re-sign Peppers, who I think is, like Derek said, he was the end of the year. You could tell he was fully healed from that ACL. I thought at the beginning of the year, he was a little tentative out there. He didn't seem all the way back. And at the end of the year, I thought he was. And, if they bring Peppers back, they still have a really deep safety room. So,
yep.
Okay. Excellent. Good stuff there, Steve. Derek, back to you. Let's go to number 4. What's your number 4?
My number 4 is an off-ball athletic linebacker. I thought Juwan Bentley had his best year this year, and he again, along with Duggar, and along with Peppers, I thought people aren't talking about his year enough. I thought Bentley, in the past, I thought that there was a lot more. I mean, and maybe it was just one of those things, but I thought in the past we've talked about Bentley as a liability at times on the defense. And I thought this year it wasn't the case. It seemed like he was putting himself in better position. I think he's kind of stepped up as one of the leaders. I would not be surprised to see him as a captain next season. I know that he was Was he this year? I forget. You guys remind me. But I just think he's stepped up and his play has improved. And yes, is he Devin Lloyd with that kind of athleticism? No. But is he someone that I thought was more of the solution and not the problem? I do, and it was one of his better years.
Okay. All right, Steve, over to you. Thoughts on Derek's number 4 before you share your number 4?
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, to Derek's point, Juwan Bentley did have his best year this year. And I know he said it in the past, and I think we all need to say it. Big mea culpa for me on Jelani Tavai. I mean,
yeah.
Come on. Oh, absolutely, guys. On all of us, right?
During the preseason, I was like, why is this guy out there? And
everybody
I think he proved me wrong. I mean, I thought he had a fantastic year. He's more athletic than I gave him credit for.
Right.
And him
and Uche complement each other. You know what I mean? Like they use them in situations and they complement each other perfectly.
And boy, they did a great job in the running game this year. I know they had some issues with those mobile quarterbacks, but I think that's a whole defensive thing that
they got that under control. They really got that.
Yeah, I think they did. I mean, at the end of the year, they faced the Bills twice, and Josh Allen did not rip them apart in either one of those games. So I think they finally figured it out how to defend that. But my number 4 is tackle.
Okay.
Your number 4 is tackle. Really? You have 3 other needs higher than tackle?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Let's I'm interested to hear about it.
All right.
Go ahead, Steve.
I think Isaiah Wynn is gone. I think they're not going to make any effort to re-sign him. And as Derek and I talked about offline, they could go one or two ways here. They could sign a left tackle, move Trent Brown to right, or they could sign a right tackle and then maybe draft a guy in the middle rounds as a left tackle and give him a year to get his feet under him and take over. But I really think they're going to double dip here between free agency and the draft. And it really needs to happen. We saw the year that both Brown and Wynn had, which was the worst of their professional careers. And it kind of snowballed on them big time all season long.
Okay, very good. All right. So, I'm sorry, what was your number 4?
He was tackle.
Tackle. Okay, Derek, your thoughts?
I have tackle higher on my list, but I do agree it's absolutely a need. I think that I would love to see the double dip happen. Whether they take a tackle in the first, I would say day 1 or day 2. I think it needs to happen. I think that you can keep Trent Brown next year. I thought Connor McDermott showed a little something. Yannick Kajust, really nothing. They need a guy they can rely on. I think they need a double dip with a veteran as well. Honestly, I would put money into the market and bring in a blue chipper. There's Matt McGlinchey is the right tackle for the 49ers, and he was a former Notre Dame player. He would fit in this scheme. He is in his mid-20s, and he's been an all-pro tackle. He's the guy that I would throw my bag at if the Patriots decide to throw money around this offseason. I think you could throw money at him, make him a very highly paid tackle. He's a converted tight end, which they love. They love that athleticism, and I would go ahead and throw money at him. You have Trent Brown for one more year to kind of ease in the rookie, and that's how I would attack it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Derek. In fact, on Sunday I wrote about that, because I said that you were the one that mentioned to me about McGlinchey with the 49ers. And, that would be a really good upgrade for them. And I agree. I think McDermott showed enough, and Belichick seemed very impressed with him the last few weeks of the season. He had some nice comments about him. I have no problem if they bring him back on a modest, contract and you got to have depth guys.
Right.
Yeah, I
And-
mean he's kind of like he's kind of the guy that you can kind of like plug in, and you're not like totally gripping your seat. Like is he going to be a terrific starter for you? No, but can he stop the bleeding?
Right.
I think
and
that's
I
the guy
think
for him.
he showed enough. The final, whatever was it, 4 or 5 games, that
for last third of the season.
He'd be a good depth guy for the
Agreed.
team next year. And you got to have depth.
Yeah,
I
I
you got to
agree.
have it. So I would bring him back. I have no issue if they bring him back on a modest deal. But yeah, they need starter caliber guys.
Tackle,
and I think
okay.
McGlinchey would be a really nice veteran to pick up. And you're not paying left tackle money, and
Yeah.
you could still add, a guy in the draft. And there's plenty of good tackles.
Okay. Good stuff there. All right. Derek, over to you. You're number 3.
Let's see here. We're going backwards. I'm just making sure I'm my number 3. Let's see again. So I guess my number 3 would be cornerback.
Corner. So we're going back to corner. Okay.
Yep. So going back to corner. I do think they need cornerback help. I do. My hope is that they re-sign John Jones, but as I was telling Steve offline the other day, I was looking at Spotrac, which does a lot of Miguel type things. They do a lot of cap and anticipated contract value and stuff, and they're anticipating him getting about $12.5 million a year, which is a lot of money. And hey, he showed his versatility last year. He's always been a very good slot corner, but he played outside, and while he wasn't perfect, I thought people were a little hard on him the second half of the season when you're going against arguably every single game one of the best cornerback or one of the best receivers in the league. Like,
Right.
if you think about it, from Thanksgiving to the end of the year, think of who John Jones had to cover. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs twice, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle. It was literally a murderer's row of receivers. I thought John Jones made himself this money this year. I hope he gets paid,
Yeah.
but I do think the Patriots desperately need some help at cornerback this year. Despite their young corners, I would hope they bring him back and then add another veteran about his caliber. I thought the Sutton idea from Steve was intriguing.
I like that.
And I would rather go with giving a veteran a good amount of money at this position than a younger player, because I do think they have some younger guys. But
Do you think Jack Jones can be that number 1 eventually?
I don't.
Okay.
But I think he could be very similar to JT Jackson, JC Jackson, which is a high compliment. I mean, JC got himself paid. I think Jack is an opportunistic guy, opportunistic in terms of turning the ball over. I'm not sure he can be I don't think he can be that Stephon Gilmore lock it down kind of player. I just don't think that's his style, but I do think he can be a really good piece. Marcus Jones was phenomenal in the slot. There was no player that PFF had graded higher than him as a pure corner, in college. I just think that they should go after a veteran and, let the younger guys kind of develop and move up.
Okay, excellent. Steve, over to you. You're number 3.
My number 3 is wide receiver.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm going. You kind of get where I'm going with this as we're building up, right?
Yeah, I got an idea.
I'm honestly, real quick, really fascinated what your top 2 are, because I feel like I know what one of them are, but I feel like there's something that I'm missing. It makes me
Derek, we're
Okay.
almost there.
question my
We're almost
list.
there.
I know.
We're
I'm
almost there,
excited.
but I think wide receivers number 3. I think
Okay.
they have, they still have Kendrick Bourne and Thornton. So you have a couple of guys right there. Jacoby Myers is going to command some money, but I would really like to see them bring him back.
Okay.
Just because him and Mac Jones have great chemistry. We've seen that for the past 2 years. And he's a possession type guy. He's not a game breaker, but they need that guy in the lineup. Now, I know the Patriots, and I got caught up in it too. They've been rumored to be,
I know where you're going. Yeah.
with DeAndre Hopkins.
Right.
And honestly, for the same amount of money that they're going to have to pay DeAndre Hopkins, they can pay 2 veteran guys. Now, the guy I'm going to mention, I don't know if they'd even be interested in him. But if you re-sign Myers and then you go after a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster.
Wow, that's an interesting name.
Now, he had 900 and something yards with the Chiefs last season. He's not a number 1, but you can have 2 number 2s with Myers and Schuster that you'd get for 1 guy in Hopkins.
Okay.
And they're both younger than Hopkins. And I was thinking about it, and it seems like that's a typical Patriots move. Like, we can get 2 guys to fill the role of 1 guy.
Okay.
And is it a true number 1 game breaker? No, he's not. But I think, the Patriots offense has always been kind of like, we have really good number 2 guys. And the only time they really had a number 1 was Randy Moss. So,
right.
I would like to see them do something like that, and they can still, in the mid to late rounds, draft another guy, and see where the chips fall. I mean, I think the receiver draft class this year isn't great.
Okay,
I think it's okay.
It's not as good as it's been in the last.
I think next year would be a really good year to draft a guy if you wanted to go higher, but. That I'd really like to see that. I think they're going to let Aguilar walk. I mean, I don't think that's a shocker.
Please.
And honestly, I think they can save money if they cut Devontae Parker, because that would add about $6 million.
Okay.
To your free agency.
So you would get rid of him at this point, Steve. You've seen enough.
Well, I mean, I like Parker. I think he's really good at what he does, but he had a couple of really solid games this year, but there was too many games where he just wasn't a factor.
It's invisible.
I'm discounting, where he missed about a month for a concussion. I mean,
right.
You can't help that, but it's just like the chemistry with him and Mac really wasn't there for me. I mean, they had it a couple of games. They connected. I like Parker's skill set, but I don't think he's what they need. Okay. So if you can save $6 million and get another guy, I'm all for it.
Okay. Derek, over to you. Thoughts on Steve's, and then we're going to go to the top 2.
I'll just kind of bridge the gap a little, Russ, and I'll just
okay.
So my second is receivers.
Okay, well, there we go.
So my top 2 will be receiver. I agree with Steve. They need to let Aguilar go, and they can reinvest somewhere else. I would like to give what they gave Aguilar to Myers. I don't know what he's going to command. I can envision something for Jacoby being something along the lines of like 5 and 50, 5 and 60. I could see something like that. I don't know if he's going to get more than that. And I think it would be great to have him, in terms of, is he going to do anything special? No, but he's just kind of the guy that you can. He's a reliable player who is smart, and I think that if you had him in your top, in your top 3, I think you're in pretty good shape, there from from that perspective. Wide receiver, to me, you have Parker where you have questions. I understand where Steve's coming from. I think that if you can keep him as a depth piece, you can use him situationally on a boundary or in a red zone. I don't know about Bourne, because they confused me about Bourne. It's like part of me thought Bourne last year was one of the biggest values in the NFL. $4 million a year. And then this year it was like, well, he would either have 6 for 116 or he would be, he'd play 3 snaps a game. I don't know. I can't answer that question because the team quite literally confused me more than maybe any player in the history of the Bill Belichick tenure is Kendrick Bourne. If they don't like him, then just get fucking rid of him.
I mean,
I think
everybody
that's okay. Sorry, Miguel.
everybody was confused
Sorry, Miguel.
with this Bourne thing last year.
Yeah.
And, a big thing, we're talking about players and maybe bringing in guys, especially on the offensive side.
Yep.
It's all going to be predicated on who they bring in as the next coach, because this guy will have a vision of who he wants, what fits what they want to do and all that. So I think with some new blood in the coaching staff, that whoever comes in, it would have to look at Bourne and say, why wasn't this guy a bigger part of the offense? So
And I know that Tyquan Thornton will be in the mix next year, but technically he's the only one who definitely will. I mean, you could make the argument that every single receiver aside from Tyquan Thornton is gone next year. I don't think that will be the case. I'm just saying you could make that argument. So you're going to have the reason it's so high on my list, which is 2. The reason is because I just think you're going to have a lot of turnover at that position, and I do think you could welcome it. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts on this roster this offseason, but I think receiver, they're going to you probably won't be able to maximize that quote unquote number 1 guy, but I think you could draft a guy in the first 2 days, relatively high. And I think you could, similar to tackle, I think you could sign a veteran that would be pretty serviceable and help upgrade the room. You were probably at, I don't think they maximized the value at the position last year because the offense was a disaster, but I think that you could increase the talent, and maybe go from a B- to a B+. Something like that. I don't know if there's a guy they're going to take that's going to take them to the top tier stratosphere, but like Steve said, I think the draft is mediocre in that talent position. I think it's good, but it's not great. I think next year you'll probably be a little bit better, but there's still some good players coming out this year if they want to go that route.
Yeah, in regards to the wide receivers, like as I was envisioning it, if they re-sign Myers and they would pick up a guy like Schuster, your top 4 would be, in no
particular
apparent order or whatever, just Schuster, Myers, Bourne, and Thornton. I think that's a
solid.
that's a good starting 4 guys right there.
Certainly enough to help a quarterback and help evaluate him.
Yeah, I think then if you get help at tackle and you have that kind of receiver core, I think you're in good shape.
Okay,
on paper you're in good shape.
All right. Good stuff about the wide receivers. Steve, before we go to number 1, you're number 2.
I'm still on my number 2.
I know. That's why I'm going to you.
Number 2, special teams coordinator.
Oh, I love it. Okay.
Their special teams this year were awful. I mean, that was the lowest in Bill Belichick's career as Patriots head coach. They need an upgrade. I don't think it's the players. I think it's the coach. And I'm not criticizing. Well, I'm not crucifying Cam Acord here, but I just think that he did not do the job. The last 2 years, the special teams let this team down and cost them valuable games. I think if you go back to some of these games and they, other than Marcus Jones, they did not have a great year. And much as I hate to say it, it's time to bring in a new kicker and a new punter.
Okay.
But I would love to see, as much as everyone hates Joe Judge right now because he was the quarterback's coach, if they were to move Joe Judge right back into that special teams area, I mean, that's why he got hired as a head coach, because
that's where he
was such a good special teams coach.
Yep.
I would love that.
Yep.
Okay. Derek, thoughts on Steve's number 2? By the way, when we get to number 1, we do have some breaking news.
I actually was about to say the same.
Okay, we have some breaking news in regard to what I think your number 1 is going to be. We'll talk about that in just a second. But before we do that, Derek, go ahead and thoughts on Steve's number 2.
So one of my number 1 needs isn't on my list. And the reason that is because I literally kept this as all positional players. I wasn't keeping coaches in the mix at all. So I love Steve's idea. I just didn't have coaching on my list. So I'm just telling
Okay.
you right now, my number one has nothing to do with coaching, even though, yeah, the coaching needs to improve because it was
Okay.
not up to my,
Well,
anyway, my
that's fine.
what up to my standards, and certainly they should have higher
Well, your
ones than me.
standards are extremely high, Derek. We know.
Well, I agree with Steve. I would have no problem with Joe Judge being at number 2. I would like to see him moved back into that world. Offensive coordinator to me, and special teams coaching certainly should be high on the list. My number 1, Russ, was tackle, and
Okay.
so I have tackle and receiver and corner is basically my top 3 with coverage, linebacker, and safety in the second tier. But
Excellent.
I would put tackle up on the list. I just don't. Even though I think that we'll receive, I could see. Even though I think that they need a boundary cornerback, I can at least look at some young talent on corner, which is why I have them 3rd. At receiver, I see a lot of turnover, but I can see guys returning, guys that I know can, be serviceable, which is why I kept them the 2nd. My biggest need would be tackle, and the reason I have him so high is because Trent Brown will be back, but you have Connor McDermott, you have Isaiah Wynn, you have Yadni Kajus. I mean, none of those guys really provided any reason to have optimism that they could be there for a whole year and be at least serviceable. They don't really have any young guns in the works coming up. Which is why the other 2 outranked them. I think you need to invest, as I said before, both in the veteran market with free agency and in the rookie market in the draft. I think you need to take 2 guys and put some, you need to add at least 2 guys, if not 3. I think you really need to invest in tackle this year because your offensive line wasn't good enough, and the coaching was bad. The receiver play was not great, but the tackle position is going to get whoever's under center, whether you're a Mac Jones fan or not. You're going to get him killed. And you can't evaluate a guy when he's on skates. And that's what happened this year.
Okay, excellent. All right, coming up next, we're going to go to Steve Balsher's number 1 need for the Patriots. And we do have some interesting breaking news coming from Ian Rappaport to end the show. All right, Steve, before I go to you, I'm just going to share some information that just came across. I don't know if you saw this or Derek saw this, but according to Ian Rappaport, the Patriots have requested an interview with Vikings wide receiver coach Keenan McCardell for the offensive coordinator position.
Can I also add something else?
Go ahead.
So they did that, which I thought was interesting. He's coached under Nathaniel Hackett, and then he coached under Kevin O'Connell, who was a former Patriots quarterback, back 15 years ago. Steve, the Patriots also officially announced that they interviewed Nick Cali. So that's interesting that announcement came through. And then DeMarcus Covington, the defensive line coach for the team, is going to be the defensive coordinator for the Senior Bowl. So that's not as important as the first 2, but it's just one of those things where, hey, you got a positional coach getting some love for the Senior Bowl that I know the Patriots put a big emphasis on if you just look at their draft last year. So just something to keep in mind. But the offensive coordinator, is obviously a big in question, and you got 2 guys on the list in Nick Cali and Keenan McCardell. So
okay,
yeah, that's interesting because I saw yesterday where Zoe said, he has sources inside.
Of course he does.
Of course he
the
does.
building. And he was of the opinion that Cali was going to leave.
Yep.
So, I mean, that would be interesting. And in fact, that, which leads right into my number 1. And I think you both know where I'm going there. Yeah. I think offensive coordinator
number 1
is the most important, fix for this team this year.
100%.
You can't evaluate, and they're coming up on year 3 with Mac Jones,
right?
And you can't evaluate him as a long-term viable, franchise quarterback for what we saw this year because of all the issues that they had, starting with the coaching. I
Right.
thought the coaching was terrible this year. You had a Civ at tackle. He was under duress almost every time he dropped back to pass. So, I think they need to make some changes. And, as we said, offensive coordinator, this guy, when if they hire Keenan McCardell or Nick Cali, whoever, I thought you were going to tell me they asked to speak with Eric Bieniemy. I don't know why. I just had that feeling. They wanted to interview him, but we'll see what happens. But when you have an offensive coordinator, he's going to make the calls on the kind of players he wants, who he wants in, who he wants out. They might be some players on this roster that he's going to decide we don't need this. It doesn't fit what we're going to do. So I think it's so important because with Jones coming into year 3, they have to decide at the end of next year, is he going to be the guy, or do we need to move on?
Yep.
And the only way that they're going to be able to do that, is to put the right people around them. They need not only a new offensive coordinator, but a quarterback coach that'll probably come with the coordinator.
Right.
And, they need to, provide him. Stop trying to put a square peg in a round hole.
No, I agree, Steve. I agree.
You have to look at what he does best, what he doesn't. Okay. We're not going to focus on trying to make him do what he doesn't do best. We're going to focus on what he does good.
Right.
And then, tailor our offense around that with the players.
Yep.
And I think that's the number one need. And I would love to see them retain Cali. Because
I want him to be the offensive coordinator. I've already said this. I want him to be the offensive coordinator.
Because, the bottom line is, I thought he should have got the job last year.
Right.
And as I talked to both of you offline, I know Derek and I spoke about this. If they struggled this year with Cali as the offensive coordinator, I could accept that.
Yeah.
Because he's a young guy. He's learning on the go. You have to
just
learn
like Josh
from
McDaniels did, Steve.
Yes. So anyway, that was my number one. And, as long as they bring in a true offensive coach, a guy, who's been there and has worked his way up, wide receivers coaches, tight ends coaches, that's where most of these offensive coordinators come from.
So let me ask you this. What are your thoughts, Derek, both of you, on the situation here that they've asked, requested the ability to interview Keenan McCardell, who was a very good wide receiver. But what are your thoughts about that?
I'll tell you, it's reason number 13,716. When Mike Reese drops a breadcrumb, you fucking pay attention. Okay, again, sorry, Miguel. I'll double swear jar today. Apparently,
Miguel will be cussing us all out in his mind.
I'm not going to hear the end of this from him.
No, I love you, Miguel. I'm so sorry. But when Mike Reese says something, you listen, because in his Sunday notes he listed Keenan McCardell, and my antenna went up. And I go, where did this come from?
Yeah, of course.
And I agree with Steve 100%. It is certainly the team's biggest need.
Yeah.
I didn't list it in my top 5 because I was just doing players, like I said, but it is extremely important, very interesting. And I'm curious to see what they do with the position. I mean, this is the first time, and you guys help me try to remember. I mean, it's been a long time since I remember them interviewing another team's positional coach and going kind of outside of their.
I can't remember the last time they've done this.
It's been a long time, So, and the Cali thing is fascinating. He was rumored to have wanted to leave last year with Josh McDaniels to go to Vegas, but Belichick apparently, from what I understand, put a stop to it. He had a year left on his contract too, so now he's a free agent. So he can technically go anywhere. The only reason I think he stays with the Patriots is if he gets a actual title. Otherwise, I think he'll join a different staff. But it would be interesting to keep an in-house guy. It'd be interesting to go outside. I mean, I would like Nick Caley, but the idea of McCardell and kind of introducing a different idea of thoughts is intriguing because of how big of an S show this whole year was, to be honest.
Right.
I mean,
well, that just shows you that they are looking at all options, because
I agree.
I was thinking that they would do, as so many here have been talking about, even though I haven't been listening a lot, I have seen some of it, that it would have to be someone from the Belichick tree or friend or whatever. Doesn't sound like that's where they're going. It sounds like they are going where they can find the right guy, wherever it is.
I mean, even if you don't want, obviously, Keenan McCardell is not in the Belichick
he's got
tree.
no links to the Patriots. None.
No. Well, the only link would be that he's the offensive coordinator for a guy that Belichick drafted. That would be the link, but it's not.
That's a very.
It's loose. It's loose, but it's not, to your point, Russ. I totally agree with you. It's not. It's just not the same thing. It's so. It's just an interesting kind of thought. And honestly, it's the first time we're seeing this kind of news that I can remember in the last decade.
Okay, what is up with this? Sorry, I have to share this. Maybe Kelly knows I'm happy to join the Patriots as a tight end assistant. Yeah. Enough, Claire. Enough. I love you, Claire. Enough. Can I go a show without talking about
the tight end assistant? There's some kind of Deshaun Watson massage joke in there if I really want to.
Yeah. No, enough. Okay. Not that I wouldn't mind having Claire come out here and live in the Boston area. I'd be cool with that. I'd be cool with it if she was the tight end assistant. I kind of like that. Just like, it's funny. I would love someday, still, the dream, Steve and Derek, is for Asmir Begovic to be the kicker for the New England Patriots. But
it needs to happen.
Yeah.
I hope he's listening. I just talked to him the other day. Asmir, how you doing,
Did
buddy?
you really?
Well, we didn't. No, we didn't get. I should have said that. We tweeted each other the other day, and I was just thinking I haven't talked to him in a little while.
Yeah, I love Asmir. I would.
He's the best.
Again, just for selfish reasons, I'd like him to move here, so maybe I could actually meet him in person. So that's for selfish.
He had some cool pictures on his Facebook page the other day.
I'll have to check it out. Okay.
Because I wanted to tweet him on that as well, but I didn't get a chance to.
And I love you, Claire. Sorry, I'm just making fun of you.
No, we all love Claire. We all love Claire.
Of course. She's the best.
She's the best. Anyways, great show, guys. Fantastic show. Steve, final thoughts before we wrap it up.
No, I mean, I don't know what kind of an offense McCardell would want to run. Maybe it's kind of what they're doing in Minnesota. That would be the only, because I don't
like
know
what they're doing in Minnesota, by the way. I kind of like it.
Yeah, I mean, they score a lot of points.
They do.
And, I'm sure we'll learn more about, what kind of offensive system he'd like to run. And we'll see what happens. I think it's very intriguing. The fact that they're, that they are going outside the normal chain of command here is intriguing, to say the least. Let's see who else they bring in for an interview. But honestly, I think it's just a good sign. They need to get this done sooner rather than later so they can start working on a vision for how they want this offense to be, built this coming season. And there's no time like the present.
Okay. Over to you, Derek. Final thoughts. I'll share mine and we'll wrap it up.
Final thoughts. I'm excited that the team has taken some action in terms of addressing an area that I thought they were negligent in this year. And as a fan if you're listening to the podcast, obviously you're a fan of the Patriots. And my whole thing is, look, I've spoken to both of you offline about this. They sent their season ticket members a letter right after the season's done saying that this season was not up to their standards. They're interviewing people outside of the organization. They're making announcements that they're looking into offensive coordinators and making changes. I think that as frustrated as I've been with some of the decisions they made, personnel wise and from a roster standpoint, the last season or two, I'm encouraged that they have been proactive so early in the year. I think it's a good sign. And I do think it's going to be a very active offseason for the team, both on the staff and from a roster standpoint.
Totally agree, Derek. Very good stuff from the two of you. My final thoughts is I think that we're going to have to establish a swear jar, and Derek's going to owe Miguel some money because we'll donate to Miguel's favorite charity. So
I'm gonna help put Brady through college. I mean, Russ is Brady, not real Brady. He can afford it himself.
Yes, my Brady. Thank you very much. All right. Well, listen, that's going to do it for this episode of Patriots 4th and 2. Before we go, as always, please do subscribe on YouTube to the PatsFans.com YouTube channel and also on Apple Podcasts. It does help other Patriots fans find us. Well, we're going to wrap this up for Steve Balistrieri and Derek Havens. I'm Russ Coleman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Patriots 4th and 2, the official podcast of PatsFans.com.